welcome back. Another episode, early episode of Evolving Through Experience, where we're talking about everything growth. Evolving through experience is exactly that, just from every aspect, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. And then whatever other levels come after that, because at the end of the day, we have to talk about this as far as growth, because there's so many different things that people deal with on a regular, whether we know it or not, behind closed doors, in front of closed doors, no matter where you at. And it's like that's my whole goal, is to bring light to that, control the narrative, and let people know that no matter what you're going through, you can overcome it. So first and foremost, Traci Litthcut, right?
Yes.
Got to make sure I pronounce it right. I don't mind asking that, because I know sometimes we can mispronounce somebody's name, and I think it's always great just to make sure we clarify things in life in general.
Absolutely.
So obviously, it's so much that you told me so far since we have spoke that I had to cut the conversation short, so we can pretty much get it to the episode. Because obviously, just from what we was speaking about, it was just like I knew you would be a perfect person to have on. Obviously, what you're doing, and we're going to get into that. So first and foremost, thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Nah, for sure, for sure. First, let's start about where were you born? I believe you said Boston, right?
Yes. So,
Okay.
I'm currently, well, no, my name is Traci Litthcut, of course.
Okay.
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, right in Roxbury, Massachusetts. I always tell people from outside the Massachusetts area, it's where New Edition's from. So,
Okay.
yes, I come from Roxbury, Massachusetts. I come from a very educated family, but I'm also a child of parents who are both formerly incarcerated.
Okay.
Right now, currently, living in Atlanta, and I work for the National Council of for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls.
Okay, yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to transition to next. 'Cause I know you said so. You said everybody was formerly incarcerated, correct?
Both my parents, yes.
Both. Okay, so they're good now. They're free now. Okay, correct.
Yes, my
Okay.
mother is the executive director of the organization, and my dad unfortunately passed away in October of last
Okay.
year.
My condolences
Thank
first and
you.
foremost.
Thank you.
Of course. Of course. So let's jump straight into it as far as National Council. Let's start with what that is, because I know we spoke about it briefly, but just for obviously the people that don't know, let's talk about that National Council.
Well, the National Council, which we say for short, it's an organization that was started by my mother, executive director and founder Andrea James. Her and other women who were incarcerated in Danbury Federal Prison created this organization because at the end of the day, they were the ones living day by day in the prison system. But they were also finding other ways of how they're going to get the other women home once they actually are released themselves. So the matriarch actually that we have, Phyllis Hardy, we call her grandma. She was part of the council. She was actually one of the main focus women that we were trying to get out within the process. And we actually were able to get grandma out, and she actually does currently work for the council right now. So what the council believes in, we believe in ending the incarceration of women and girls, as well as changing the narrative of what prison reform truly means. So we have things, our headquarters is currently in Boston because of my mom being from Boston, but we believe in starting in our own backyard. The National Council also has different branches within different states because, as I said before, a lot of the women who work with my mother are formerly incarcerated from different states. So we have basically all West Coast, East Coast, North and South. But right now we have 3 pillars that we are currently working on. Reimagining communities. Reimagining communities is basically putting the resources within the community instead of putting it towards prisons. What people don't understand is that in Massachusetts right now, they are trying to currently fund a $50 million new women's prison in Massachusetts. Just $1 million of that can go into one simple part of our community in Boston. Roxbury, my hometown, is actually...
Being proactive.
Yes, Roxbury is actually my hometown, and they actually have the highest incarceration rates within the different districts of Boston. So we have Boston, Dorchester, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Rosendale, and other few towns of Boston, but Roxbury is the main one.
Okay.
What people don't understand is that Massachusetts, we have a low population for in Massachusetts for incarcerated women, but we have the highest sentencing. So women that are 50 plus are serving life sentences, double life sentences, things of that nature. So that's our first thing, is to make it aware to the community. We also have this thing called Community Love Fund. So if you are a woman who is just transitioning out of the system, or if you are a person that is directly impacted, you get $500 for us a month for about a year. And this is all just still under reimagining communities. We also have different programs where for hydroponic farming. So we have that going on right now in Massachusetts, in Pittsburgh right now currently. And we plan on actually giving the vegetables to communities that are facing food deserts right now. And we are also starting programs where people will be able to do CDL programs. We also have programs, instead of reaching out to law enforcement to handle situations, we're going to have trained individuals from the community come and try to, de-escalate the situation and cause less harm to the people within the community.
No, I'm glad you said that, because it's so much you did just say, and it's a few pointers I even want to point out from there. First and foremost, obviously, we know it's intentional. Like you said, they're trying to fund the $50 million. And I know you're saying trying, but obviously, they not even trying. They just doing it like out of thin air. So it's I'm glad you're saying y'all being proactive. Like even like $1 million could go towards being proactive and avoiding that whole situation in general. But obviously we know this is intentional. Prison system obviously is private business, so it's very profitable. It's an unfortunate profit. Although obviously as a business owner, we all love profit, but that goes where it goes against ethics and morals at the end of the day. So with that being said, obviously y'all have done a lot and started a lot since it been started. Was it started in 2018? When did it start? As far as
it started in 2011.
2011. Okay.
Yeah. It started in 2011. And that was right around the time. I want to say that was either the year my mother was released from prison or possibly a year after. Usually a lot of trauma you try not to think about.
Yeah, I understand.
As
That's
a
a whole
child.
part.
Yeah, I was 12 when my mother was incarcerated. My mother actually he's now 13, but my little brother was only 5 months old when she had to turn herself in. And then I have my sisters who were much older, but they were still affected as well.
Now, of course, I think no matter what age, somebody's going to be affected. And obviously, I'm sure it was probably harder for your little brother. I mean, at the time, he only 5 months, so he didn't know then, but coming up and hearing this. So how long was she incarcerated?
She was incarcerated for 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yes. And she was in Danbury, Connecticut. So my dad, he was the reason why my little brother even was able to still know my mom was my mom. Every weekend we would drive 2.5 hours from Boston, Massachusetts to Danbury, Connecticut, just to see my mom from whatever time range that they had. And I was very grateful to even have my dad to do that, because there are a lot of children who are separated. Their mothers are across the country in California, and their children can be in New York and Boston, so I'm very fortunate to say that. But like I said, there are a lot of children right now who are directly impacted, and they do not have that opportunity when it comes to seeing their mothers incarcerated.
No, facts. And a shout out to your pops for that. And how long was he incarcerated?
My dad, I want to say 4 years. I wasn't born yet, but he was incarcerated in Pennsylvania.
Okay. So cool. So I know the statistics. So let's we're gonna transition. So I know it's a statistic, and I have it. It was actually I think they say it's 6 to 7 more times likely for a kid to be incarcerated being if their parents were. So let's talk about that transition. Like, how did you obviously avoid that, or I'm sure there's been instances where not necessarily you was tempted to go, but it's just like obviously from the inside of knowing like, all right, my parents been incarcerated, and having to deal with that from the mental and emotional battle just as a teen or as a kid, and just like, and then you have other siblings and y'all all trying to navigate between these different emotions and not lashing out. How did you transition through that to pretty much obviously to get to where you are today?
Well, I will say, like I said earlier, my parents, my mom especially, comes from a very educated background. So school to me, I didn't have a choice whether my mom was there or not, know. But I also loved school, so I felt like that was kind of my way from escaping from the world and stuff like that. But to be honest, I had friends who had parents, but their fathers incarcerated. So to be honest, it was kind of not normal, but it was kind of like, oh, you just got to do day by day, do what you got to do and stuff. But I
That's a whole
always
nother
knew.
discussion.
But I always told myself that my mother was coming home, so I have to do what I have to do regardless. But what I want people to know, when they don't have a due date for their parent who is being released from prison, you got to keep going for your parents, because your parents are gonna live through you, and you know, at the end of the day, we go through so much trauma just as a child. But it's really up to us to really figure out how we can come to some type of mental healing for ourselves and our community. Agreed. And that's why I say we need to put more resources into the community, so we don't even have issues like this of a mother going to a prison and their child, us worrying about if their child is going to be incarcerated next. Just things like that. And I don't mean to toot our own horn, but we actually have stopped the architecture company 4 times for actually trying to build.
That's definitely something to toot your horn about, because it's just like, this is bigger than your mom and y'all. Like, obviously y'all know that because y'all started this to help so many other people. So that's definitely something, because I know sometimes people could see and want something and they feel like it's no change coming, and obviously it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't understand when building anything, even with me building this company, Evolving Through Experience, because it's more than a podcast, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of things people don't see behind the scenes that taking effect. So y'all being able to stop the architect company, I think that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I definitely got to commend y'all for that. But with that being said, what advice would you say your mom was giving you while y'all going on those visits? And it's like a constant thing. You're pretty much getting accustomed to coming here on a regular. It's like you starting to meet the security or whatever there so often. So like, what advice is she giving you to pretty much, when you go back home, it's like it's a substance where it's like, all right, we could get through this together. We're doing it together. So what advice would that be that she
I
gave?
would definitely say the advice that my mother definitely gave to me is watch who you surround as your circle, as your people, because you can think that you're doing so good for your people, but at the same time, people can be taking advantage of you. People could put you in predicaments where they'll leave you, so it's just like right now, what my mother was really telling me as a 12-year-old girl is that you gotta school's your only hustle right now. So this should be your only focus right now. And, you know, there's only so much a mother can tell you while being incarcerated and stuff, because I can smile in your face right now. We be so happy, but at the end of the day, you're not going home with me. You have to go right back in there. And like, what used to kill us is that and if certain people watching this know, Danbury, Connecticut, my mother was up the hill. So down the hill, and then up the hill. And
what you mean by that?
So down the hill basically meant, like, just depending on your case and stuff, if it was considered a violent transgression, things like that, or other blue collar crimes. So usually up the hill were less violent transgressions.
Yeah. So she was down the hill, you saying?
No, she was up the hill.
Oh, she was up the hill.
She was
okay,
up the hill. But the thing is, up the hill is that there's a window that you can see, and we can't see my mom, but my mom could see us when she was leaving. And I know that was really killing my mom inside. So
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and like, you know, me as a child, I'm not really knowing my emotions and stuff. You know, I'm young and stuff and everything. So just as a mother, like, I can just tell that was hard and stuff. And my little brother, he wasn't really aware of the things. So for me, it was just kind of like, you got to do what you got to do.
No,
like,
facts. I'm glad you said that, because even just as a father, I can only imagine sitting in a cell and seeing my son go away on a regular, like knowing like either whether I was accountable in the day, whether I did something to land me here or somebody else. Is just like, none of that even matters right now. Knowing my son is going away, whether no matter what age, is just like, dang, I can only imagine. So I could, like I said, I can only imagine. I know people saying I can't imagine, but you can imagine to some degree, but you can't relate. You can't relate. You can imagine, but you can't relate.
Exactly.
So I think that's vital. And at the end of the day, with that being said, also, what advice was you giving your mom? Because I know she needed it just as much as y'all probably needed it. It's probably like a mutual give and take type thing. So
yeah, but to be honest, my mom, she was stuck on me with school, school,
Mhm.
school, school. So I think me just continuing to get good grades while we were going through this as a family,
Mhm.
that was making my mother truly happy. And
Mhm.
I was a basketball player, so
Mhm.
just talking to my mom about my basketball
Mhm.
games and stuff, just about everyday life that I'm learning, I think that's what brought true happiness to
Yeah.
her.
She
And
could
to
live
be
through that.
honest, yeah, even at 12 years old, like I kind of realized, I may be sad even, but there are other people going through way worse
Mhm.
situations like this, and
Yeah.
it's just it was just, I don't know, I felt like at 12 years old I was just grateful to just still able to see my mom and have a solid foundation with my family, like my dad, my sisters, my grandparents, things like that.
No, I really got to commend you, and I don't say that lightly because again, at 12 years old, the process that I'm grateful for what I do have. It's like, and that's one thing I practice now. Just gratefulness and gratitude on a regular daily basis, just for simple things like the fact I could stand up and go to the
Yes,
bathroom in the morning by
yes,
myself, whether it's 3 in the morning. And I don't really want to get up, but it's like I could do it by myself without having help. So, like you said, you realizing this gratefulness at 12, like
hmm
knowing that, all right, it's some people, parents that's not even here. So although it's unfortunate, I got to go visit my mom in a whole nother state to see her
hmm
in prison, but it's like at least I get that, and it's like you focusing on that, and I think that's so vital for a lot of people to do that same thing, to focus on what you do have versus focusing on what you don't, because as soon as you
exactly,
start focusing on what you don't, you're gonna focus on more of what you don't, and it's just like
exactly,
then you don't even realize you just lost for the thing that you really needed or you was grateful for or
yeah.
should have been grateful for.
And my family poured so much love into us that um you always want that missing piece
Yeah.
of your mom,
Mhm.
but my dad, he was my rock, so
Yeah.
he was
Shout out to
able
him.
to hold all of us together, like, because we it's my
Mhm.
sisters and my little brother.
And how
So
many were y'all siblings total? How many of you?
on my mom's side, she has three daughters
Mhm.
and two sons.
Okay.
So my other siblings, they were actually outside of the house.
Mhm.
They were grown,
Go
so
okay,
they
yeah.
were
Doing their own thing.
living, yeah, doing their
Yeah.
own thing. So I was fortunate. I didn't have to leave once my mother went to prison. I didn't have to leave my home or
Mhm.
anything because my grandparents, well, my great grandmother bought the house that my family currently lives now in
Mhm.
Boston. So
Okay.
I'm the fourth generation to live in that house, if I'm
Okay.
not
Legendary house then. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Never
Black
selling
people,
it.
right? Black people don't
Ne-
sell your
ne-
house. Don't sell them
I
houses
mean, if you
that
got to,
grandma
holla at
left
me. We
y'all.
buy houses. So
Right? Don't sell
holla
that.
at us. We
Right.
will buy the house.
Right. Buy black, but don't.
Yeah, yeah. If you selling it, if you got to sell, just holler at us. We gonna make sure we look out at the end of the day. If you gotta sell, if you gotta sell.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that too. Your pop. So what advice was he giving y'all? Because then even from obviously I know you can't speak from a man's standpoint,
Hmm.
but I could again only imagine him trying to hold it down for everybody, all the daughters and the son. Like so, it's just
Yeah.
like, all right, how do I navigate through this? So what advice was he giving y'all, and like what would you feel like was his outlet during this entire time? Feeling like because he got to hold it and take on all that weight by itself.
To be honest, I wouldn't even say advice. My dad was all about action.
Mm,
So he, like I said, my little brother was 5 months
mm-hmm,
old when my mother went to prison.
yeah,
So I don't think my dad was actually able to be there for his other daughters because he
mm-hmm,
was incarcerated at their early ages.
mm-hmm.
So once my little brother was born, he really
Wanted to be
he
there.
ate that
Yeah,
up, and
yeah,
he was my little brother. You couldn't he would not go if it wasn't me or my
yeah,
dad. He wouldn't go. So he
yeah.
handled what he was supposed to handle. Like my grandparents had custody on the they were on the first floor, and they took very well care of me, like
Yeah.
through like helping me, funding me through school.
Mhm.
But my dad, he was doing to make sure I got up for school. I
Yeah.
did what I was supposed to do. I still had chores.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, facts.
he
Still gave that
he yeah.
responsibility.
So
Yeah, yeah,
he nothing really changed. He was just on top of me, like on
yeah,
top of me. And I handled my grades so well. He didn't
yeah.
really
Even worry
have
about
to
it.
pay attention to that aspect of it, but he was really about action and stuff and did what he was supposed to. And like I said, he traveled every weekend to
Yeah.
Danbury, Connecticut.
Nah, I never even met him, but I definitely want to say, just from what you told me, I'm thankful for him and inspired by that because as a father, it's just like like I said, I can only imagine that pressure. Obviously, as any father, it's pressure on you because you have a whole seed. So for him to be able to do all of that is just like you said, really just get it done. Like
Yeah.
no excuses.
Mhm.
I could relate to that because like it's no excuses when it comes to my son. Like if something need to be done, it's like it's me or nobody else. Obviously, his mom is definitely in the picture and she's a great mother. I want to be on
Mhm.
record saying that.
Mhm.
But in the day, as a father, it's like this is my responsibility, and it's like I won't let nobody tell me I'm not accountable because obviously
Exactly.
knowing there's so many fathers that's intentionally and unintentionally they're not there in their kid's life. So it's like, who am I to play with this gift or this blessing to not be able to be active? With that being said, being that we speaking about kids, you
Mhm.
do you have any kids?
Absolutely not.
Okay, dang, why you say it like that? So nah. So do you feel like obviously do you feel like this situation will affect you to some degree? Obviously for the better when you
Mhm.
do have kids or when you decide to have kids, if you want
Wait,
them.
what do you mean by like?
As far as like this whole transition of you, obviously your parents being
Mhm.
incarcerated and things
Mhm.
like that, do you feel like do you want kids first and foremost?
I do. I
Okay,
do.
so you feel like this situation obviously will help you for the better when you do have them and
Oh
showing them how to
yeah.
navigate things a lot better.
Absolutely. To be honest, whatever kid comes into this family now is we call it a movement baby.
Movement baby,
Yeah,
I like that.
I have two
Yeah,
nieces,
yeah, yeah. I
Katori
like that.
Ray and Lola.
Shout out to them,
Yes,
movement
my
babies.
babies.
Yeah.
They that's what I'm really gonna instill in my
Mhm.
child. Because this ending incarceration of women and girls, it's not gonna end tomorrow. It's gonna
Yeah.
take some time
Mhm.
because we have to dismantle a whole system and basically start over
Yeah.
because this system was never destined for us to
Facts, of
succeed or
course.
anything like that. So my whole objective when I have a child is to make my child very aware of the things going on. Um, and just be politically aware and just read.
Mhm.
That's what my mother has instilled in us. Read books. Like,
Mhm.
and
I'm glad you said that.
yes, and I fortunately was able to graduate from Spelman College, and that
Congrats.
thank you, and that's what they instilled in us. Like our
Reading.
whole freshman year,
Mhm.
just reading, learning about the African diaspora of the
Mhm.
world, things of that.
Yeah.
So the more you know, the less these people can talk to
Yeah.
you crazy or anything
Mhm.
like that,
And know
because
how to navigate.
when you
Mhm.
know your stuff, can't nobody tell you anything
Yeah, I'm
different.
glad you said that because that's actually what I was gonna go into next. But before I get there,
Mhm.
what's a book that you recommend that you've read? This one, because obviously I know
Mhm.
you've probably read several books,
Mhm.
but in a sense of a book that's inspired you to grow and keep pushing forward, that actually gave you real substance. Because it's a lot of generic books like just get it done or you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Mhm.
But I'm talking about real substance, like those intangible skills and
Mhm.
gifts that you need. So
Mhm.
what's one book that you read you could say?
Well, I will say my favorite book that I ever read was the autobiography of Asada Shakur.
Mm-hmm.
I say that just because that's a black woman not only speaking from experience, but she knows what she's talking
Mm-hmm.
about. And another book I would possibly there's so many Angela
I know.
Davis
Yeah.
books that
Yeah.
like I honestly just recommend any Angela Davis books
Word. Okay.
whatsoever. I was also a fan of Maya Angelou, so I'm a fan
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of
Respectfully.
black authors. Yeah, I could give you a whole lot of books,
Yeah,
but
I know. I know you could.
the
Yeah.
autobiography of Asada Shakur
Okay.
basically just shows you just the basics of the work that we people are trying to do when it comes to just black people,
Yeah.
incarceration, things of that.
So it was one part where you did see when I was checking out your website. I like you said, y'all want to give people actual help. So I love what y'all doing with the 500 a month because
Hmm.
that's putting actions behind your words
Yes.
versus just saying all right or just trying to figure it out another way. It's like let's really help you in what you need. You may be offering water, but if somebody need a snack, it's like it does not matter. Like this is what they need. So y'all
Hmm.
actually doing what they need, and I think that's really vital. One
Thank you.
part I seen on your website was where I was given those actual steps on what to do with like little black, like not little black girls, but
Hmm.
black children that's in school.
Hmm.
And I forgot the exact tab it was under,
Hmm.
but pretty much where I was like, if something does happen with your daughter or a black kid in your school, this is what you do. This is your rights to get
Hmm.
access to the footage, get
Hmm.
rights to documentation.
Yeah.
And the biggest part of what I really loved was listen to what the child has to say. The parent coming in and instead of just listen to one side of the story, but actually sitting down and listen to what does this little girl, little boy say
Exactly.
happen, like, and let them know like I'm not just listening, but I'm not just hearing you, but I'm really listening to let you say your side because I think it's situations where that doesn't happen often, and then they wonder why those same little kids and girls grow up and now they don't want to speak about certain things. They just let things slide, but inside it's not so much just sliding, it's just building up that turmoil
Exactly.
that's going to eventually lash out. And now it's like, oh, they're another statistic. So that's what I want to talk about. I
Yeah.
really loved how y'all did that.
Thank you. And I think another problem, to add on to what you're saying, I think another problem that we have to address towards that is how black women are perceived when it comes to their
Mm-hmm.
emotions,
Yeah.
because a lot of times
We'll be here all day.
you know, and
And some.
me, I was fortunate enough to
Yeah.
attend a private school that was predominantly white when I was in high school, but you know, sometimes things that, like, you know, a typical black woman would
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have an attitude, not even
Yeah.
an attitude,
Yeah.
like something that she has a right to be
Yeah. Facts,
angry
of course.
about. You know, I was always kind of seen as the angry black
Yeah.
kid, and once I was there, I didn't want to be
Seen
seen
that way.
as
Yeah.
that, you know, constantly, you
Yeah.
know. So that did cause me
Yeah.
to shut down and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But another outlet I will say that I did find when I was attending that school, I took a creative writing class,
Okay.
and
Mm.
you know, I know a lot of, you know, you meet a lot of girls and stuff, and you hear that, like, you know, they're writers, they write books and stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
always thought to myself, and my sister, shout out to my sister, we were just talking about this, um, like, start something creative writing for people who are
Mm-hmm.
transitioning out of prison and
Yeah.
stuff, you know,
Mm.
just to write down
Yeah.
everything, because you're trapped in with all
Yeah.
these other women
And
in
you
a
could
in a
experience, you
yeah,
know,
in an
you can relate.
unsafe, like, you know, just
Environment, yeah.
terrible environment, you know.
Intentionally, of course, but yeah.
Exactly. Guards aren't the best people. Like, you
Mm,
just trying to get home to your family. You just try
yeah.
to get a phone call. Some women can't even get. Some women are even incarcerated due to them not being able to afford bail,
Oh
and
man,
that
we can talk
is,
about it.
yeah.
No, that, like I said, we'll be here all day and some, because even with that alone, I had a different question, but being that you just said that, it's like not even being able to afford bail, and this is one of the reasons like why I do what I do now, and that's why I stopped waiting to bring this platform back. Khalif Browder, you know the
Yes,
story?
yes. Black
Man,
man in New
like
York.
every
Yes.
time, yeah, every time once I first heard about that story, I was like young. I think I was like high school,
Mhm.
when like
Mhm.
early high school when I found out about that story, and then seeing the documentary, like it bring tears in my eyes to
Mhm.
know, like, bro, like, one, he didn't even do nothing wrong, but to know y'all intentionally set these bails high, knowing that he
Mhm.
couldn't afford a $3,000 bail, is like, no, that's ridiculous. And at the end of the
Exactly.
day, with that being said, not only was I enraged with emotion behind it, but like I tried to do a lot of things that Khalif said he wanted to do.
Mhm.
Like his actual words were from the documentary is like, I know he connected with Hove and Jay-Z, and then he was doing things, he was making traction to get better to what he wanted to do. And I think that's one part reason why I went to college too. But I know Khalif said he wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to be on Wall Street. He also said he wished he could have went to prom. I wasn't gonna go to my high school prom, but once I heard that, I was like, all right, let's order the suit, whatever I
Yep.
need.
Yep.
It's like, because when it's bigger than me, it's like it's easy for me to do things or really have no excuses with it. And like, this is what the brand is bigger than me. So knowing like he wish he could have did those things, it's just like I got to do whatever I can. Whatever he said he wish he could have did, I'm gonna do it for him. And even with that, like, excuse me, even celebrating like my birthdays and stuff like that. It's a lot of people that I know personally, family or whatever, like that's around that would have been my age that never
Mhm.
even got to see it. So who am I not to be grateful for it and
Exactly.
make sure I celebrate it? Because it's not for me, but it's also for the ones that's not here. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm definitely glad you said. I'm glad you said that.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
another thing I want to say, not to cut you off real
Mhm.
quick, is back to the books and also with the black girls and knowing the not statistics, but as far as with
Mhm.
them being targeted in school.
Yeah.
It also, when I checked out on the website, it reminded me of the book I read by Dr. Umar, The Holocaust of Academic Black Boys, and
Mhm.
I don't think he said black boys, but just kids that look like us. The academic Holocaust that's intentional. So reading that book is just like seeing that these different people that has the power over these schools,
Mhm.
districts, and things like that, seeing them intentionally say or set things up to for us to fail was just crazy. So it's
Yeah.
like I wasn't surprised when I was reading that on your website, but it made me think of that book, knowing that the district of this, the school board district or whatever of this area or this state was intentionally setting things up. And I'm talking about from the 60s. So that's still in effect to today. And it's just like
Exactly.
that helped me navigate through school a lot better, because it's like I see where those same situations that he was talking about in the book,
Mhm.
I see where they was trying to do that to me. And I had a teacher one time, actually a principal, tell me not to come to school. I probably had to tell that story a whole nother time, but he told me not to come to school. And I just thought it was regular. Like we said, we think some of this stuff is normal. I'm like, okay, cool, don't come to school. I didn't want to come to school anyways.
Like,
but a principal telling me not to come to school. And when I was telling people, they was like, no, he can't tell you that. Like, he can get in trouble for that. And I wound up, somebody told me, and this is why I think I always had this spirit, like, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm gonna hold people accountable. So they was like, you should write a letter to the board of district, and then have everybody that he told that was in the area sign that paper. And then they tried to put me in a whole nother classroom or whatever, but I wrote that, and then he was back the next day. I don't know what ever happened, but he told me not to come to school. But I'll have to tell this story another day in detail.
But that's just right there, like a principal. School's supposed to be a place for you to get the best education that you have. But yet that's bullying. Like, he's over here telling you this stuff, and this is why
the white principal too. Don't come to school, bro.
Yeah, and it's just like, who are you to tell me not to come to school? Like, if I don't come here, you're not getting paid the way you should be getting paid. You know, so it's just that we have to start holding things like schools accountable, because it all starts with schools. Kids get sent home from school for, I'm sorry, the dumbest reasons. And you're taking you don't know what that child went through before they came to school. You don't know if that child didn't eat. You didn't know if that child was being abused before they got to school. You don't know. Some kids have to take care of their families before they even go to school.
Unfortunately, it's that way,
Exactly. So it's just like, it'd be wrong. And this is why I say you need to have people within your community, because if you don't have people in your community, you're not going to know how to deal with these people. You're not going to know how to talk to these people. Like, they're human at the end of the day. Don't look at them as a cash cow. These are children at the end of the day. They're at their purest forms right now.
No, agreed 1,000%. And even with that being said, as far as like, I agree with you to some degree on that, as far as like with the kids going to school, this is what they need. That's 100%. But I think now, as we evolve and we transition, it's like, we got to bring our kids, we got to obviously be the first and foremost, the one to educate our kids, and hopefully, like, obviously get them into homeschool, private school that really teach them real stuff. Because, you know, substance, it don't be real substance. Like, I don't even know when the last time anybody in here used like a CUSE or something, whatever they was teaching in school, the trigonometry. Like, when do we ever really use that in the real world? Like, not saying it may not be important for some point, but depending on what area you want to go in, you may need that for certain careers. But depending on what you want to do, like, how often do we really use that type of stuff?
Yeah. So I guess when I say that for like schools, I mean, how can I say it? It is up to our community to educate us and stuff. But at the end of the day, we paying taxes to these schools. So I feel like they need to work around, at least work around, figure out what kids in there, if you're going to do standardized testing, even though it's not really to see, you know, how these kids are doing in school, the best you can do is try to give them those resources just so if they are going to go to school, because some kids don't have the opportunity to go be homeschooled and stuff because their parents work, you know, 9 to 5, if not working overnights and stuff. So the best we can do right now is not also inform your community, but also put more money into these schools. Like, we need to take care of, and then to add on, in Boston, a lot of public schools are closing, but more charter schools are open. And I don't really know how anybody feels about charter schools, but a lot of times
they're for profit, right?
They have a lot of rules for the kids about, you know, what they could do, what they can wear and stuff like that. And it's just like, we're not gonna have so many public schools, and everything's gonna be charter.
And charter, you got to pay for charter, right? Is it
charter? No, you don't. But now, what I just realized in New Orleans, basically all of the schools now are charter schools and stuff, and that's just people don't even realize that's terrible, because charter schools do nothing for kids in the Black community whatsoever. It's just money cows. That's all.
No, I'm not even surprised. I'm not surprised with that at all. With that being said, I want to say, give me a time when you've first, what does evolving through experience mean to you first?
Evolving through experience?
Yeah, if you just heard that, evolving through experience, what does that mean to you? Obviously your whole life, but still.
Yeah, but when I hear that, I basically think of, how did you take the, if not traumatic experience, they don't have to be traumatic, but any life lesson that you feel that could contribute a major part in your life, I think that's what's considered evolving through life, right?
Yeah, evolving through experience. But life experience. My experience. It's still life though. Life is an experience, so you're still right.
Exactly. So that and it's really what you make it. I'm not gonna say that we don't need any type of healing or
Mm-hmm.
therapy. The Black community is the main community that needs some type of therapy and and healing. Not just Black women, but Black
Mm-hmm.
men
Yeah.
also as well.
Yeah.
So it's really how we take these traumatic experiences, life experiences, and how we turn it into something positive
Yeah.
or a way for it to work for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Agree.
So, yeah, that's what I'll say.
Nah, for sure. And with that being said, I know I'm definitely looking forward to having your mom on too, because
Mhm.
I'm sure she could speak from that aspect as
Mhm.
well, a million times as well, from different things that, like I said, the real intangibles that people need. Like we can give the generic advice, and not saying it's not good,
Mhm.
but like we need to help people exactly where they are and like exactly with what they need, because
Exactly.
that's so vital. So with that, also give me a time or an example when you've been overwhelmed, or you feel like you was in like one of your darkest moments,
Mhm.
but you been able to overcome it from now to then, and what
Mhm.
helped you do that.
I would probably say my darkest moment. Hmm. I probably have to say my dad passing away in
Mm-hmm.
October. It affected the whole family. A lot of us
Yeah.
didn't even know if we wanted to continue to do this work
Yeah.
and stuff, just because my dad, he was also involved with the work
Heavy.
as
Yeah.
well with the council. So
Mm-hmm.
he was, everybody looked up to my dad, and he just the thoughts that he had, he came from a traumatic life himself. So
Mm-hmm.
for him to just be this great guy
Mm-hmm.
and not be this evil person
Yeah.
and stuff to us, like, you just gotta commend him for that.
For
And
sure.
that's what but my what I say always all the time is that my dad wouldn't want me to be sad
Yeah.
consistently over this and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I said, my dad was about action. he
Yeah.
he moved forward. And I've been trying to find different ways to grieve and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because I realize other people grieve
Yeah.
differently.
Agreed.
But what I will say is that every time I think of, like, oh God, like, forget this, like,
Yeah.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
not motivated anymore. It's like he pops up in my head and is like, get up,
Yeah.
like,
Nah, for sure.
get up.
No, and I think that's good. But also, do you feel like with that also being said, that that could somewhat like be somewhat of a downfall, like where you always like focus on the next thing and like
Oh
being
yeah,
pushed?
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
how do you feel like you
absolutely.
balance between that? And I think it's still a balance, and I'm glad you said like you still trying to figure out the grieving, because
Mhm.
this is life. Like I know people with this brand, I want people to really see that, yo, like no matter what it is, you don't got to feel like you overcame it today. Everybody on here
Exactly.
doesn't necessarily, like you said, have to have a traumatic story or have to overcame every single thing, because
Mhm.
it's a continuous process. And this is what I want people to see. Like the same way you listen to it is like the same way you can actually do it and understand. Like we ain't got here where it's all
Yeah.
peachy. It's like you can understand we're still work in progress, but we
Mhm.
could do it together.
Yeah. So what I what I really want to make it known to people is that acknowledge the trauma first
Mm.
that you have encountered. I think that's important because just everyday stuff, me, Roxbury's the hood.
Yeah.
So just things that we hear, people getting killed. Like I remember there was a meeting that we had
Yeah.
in Roxbury, and they were shooting. We were like, oh, they shooting again. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's
It's so
not
normal. Yeah,
normal.
it's
Like, that's
normalized. Yeah.
so we need to
Yeah.
acknowledge what is trauma first, or
Mm-hmm.
what is something that is causing us stress, because I can speak as a Black
So
woman. We're
much. Yeah.
always told that we can handle all of this stress and all of this stuff. But in reality, I always know when I'm getting overwhelmed when, like,
Mm-hmm.
I start doing like hands and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, know yourself, figure out who you are as a person, know what your triggers are, and figure out why those are your triggers. Like,
Yeah.
figure out why something like that bothers you and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it can go past to something last week or
Yeah.
something when you were a
Facts.
child.
Yeah.
So we got to acknowledge
I just had an
first.
example of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
acknowledge our traumas first.
Yeah.
Hold people accountable.
And
And
ourselves.
I
Yep.
understand that, for the older generation, it's hard for them to hold accountability sometimes.
Hey, that's a whole nother episode. No
Right.
facts.
For the trauma, we ain't
Yeah.
gonna get to
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for them to, acknowledge some trauma, but
Mm-hmm.
we also have to acknowledge that they've also
Yeah.
encountered trauma as
I'm
well.
glad you
And
said
it's
that.
and it's
Yeah.
a cycle that where we
So
have to
far back.
find healing
Mm-hmm.
and no and cause no further harm.
No, I agree. And with that being said, before we even wrap, I want to say, with that, it's like I was having this conversation with somebody a while ago, a few people actually. It's like, at what cost do we have to keep trying to help people.
Mhm.
Although our goal is to obviously help people, and I'm sure y'all get backlash from the people. It's
Do
like people don't,
we?
like I said, they don't understand the back end. It's like you doing
Yeah.
everything you can, you working your butt off like every single day, and people don't understand that, and they just focus on what you didn't do or what you did wrong, but
Mhm.
all the positives. So, what can you say as far as like at what point? How far can we go back to save people? Because I feel like some people don't even want to be saved, and
Mhm.
then like at what cost will it take to get back past all this trauma and really save people?
I guess it just depends on at what cost are you willing to, ride out for this
Yeah,
cause. You know, this situation, like I'm gonna continue to do this work to the day I
facts.
die.
Yeah, and
Um,
some.
I'm pretty sure my mother, my sisters are as well. So it just really, like I said, depends on how much you're ready to go to battle,
Yeah,
because we probably deal with a lot of difficult things, difficult people, but in reality we got to realize this is where we didn't put ourselves into a situation, they
yeah,
put us into it, and we have to figure out, we have to help people acknowledge all the stuff that
yeah,
that is not acceptable for them or their self-worth.
yeah.
So that's what I'll definitely say.
Okay. Well, where can people follow you at, and then also the brand, obviously
Yes.
National
Well, I
Council?
need to make a
Yeah.
quick
Oh yeah,
announcement. Okay.
for sure.
So,
Free. I see the shirt.
we have a public policy research think tank called the Free Her Think Tank. And so the think tank is actually going to be in Martha's Vineyard, which is in Massachusetts,
Yeah,
right where Obama goes there for the
yeah.
summer. But it's also a place for a lot of successful
Hmm.
black wealthy people to come and spend their summers in. And so what we're doing is we're selling these T-shirts. These are the Free Her T-shirts. And I can actually leave you like the link and stuff where
Okay.
they
Yeah,
can
for
buy the
sure.
T-shirts. But these T-shirts are actually going to fund the public policy research that we do with the think tank. So not only is it going to be a safe space for our organization, but other
Hmm.
abolitionist organizations, prison reform organizations, that's where they're going to come together and feel free to come and just figure out
Things
what we
together.
can do
Yeah.
across the country, just to figure out how we can end incarceration of women and girls.
Nah, perfect. I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna make sure. I already got the link, but you can send it to
Mm.
me again. I'll
Yeah.
make sure I add all the Instagrams and everything.
Thank you.
But with that being said, I
Mm.
think I definitely could see Evolving Through Experience doing something in the future with y'all, because with that I have a thing called Project Prevail. Like I
Okay.
said, not so much about just talking, but real action. So for me, it's like any way I could really help, because obviously I started this years ago, but I had like Project Prevail where we did stuff for the whole George Floyd situation, not just him, but that entire police brutality thing, where I was giving money to Tamika Mallory Until Freedom
Mm.
organization, and but even before then, I started it off of Flint, Michigan, because I see what was going on
With the
out there. I'm
water,
like,
yeah.
all right, I could bring notice to the world, but I want to put money behind it. So what I decided is like that's just one situation. So I started Project Prevail under Evolving Through Experience, where a percentage of every sale of merchandise or whatever we do, I want to put that aside
Mm.
just for when these situations happen. It's like, all right, y'all need something out here? Boom, we got the
Mm.
money. We not
Mhm.
asking no American Red Cross that
Mhm.
takes 80% of what they get and keep it in their pocket. It's
Yeah.
like cool. And then I can hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
I put up the 80 million now. So now we ain't got to worry about asking y'all. It's like this is an organization for us.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. So
Mm.
like I said, I definitely could see us eventually doing something that's working that out. But so yeah, so Evolving Through Experience, I definitely want to say thank you for coming on again.
Thank you. And I also want to say I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say,
Mhm.
if you become a member at the National Council, it is only $5 per year. But
Okay.
what I always tell people, when you pay that $5, you're actually giving free membership to a woman who is transitioning out of prison
Okay.
for a full year. So
Okay,
that's
bet.
their way of contributing to their community.
Bet. And y'all take donations as well on the regular, right?
Donations
Okay.
and all that. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. All right, so y'all see where it is. We'll definitely drop that in the link at the
Thank
end of
you.
the
Thank
day
you.
on all the platforms, the YouTube. So y'all know, follow us, Evolving Through Experience on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all platforms. At the end of the day, find us on Apple Music or whatever. And like I said, Evolving Through Experience, we here to help people prevail. The intangibles, the inside, the things that we don't talk about as much. I know we could talk about music, we could talk about sports, we could talk about finances, entrepreneurship, and I love all of those. Don't get me wrong, but it's like what's behind that that's really gonna give you substance, that's really pushing you forward to build out brands like what we have today, like our brands and things like that. So that way we could really push people forward and not just so much about the things that's and not irrelevant, but not as relevant, not top
Right.
priority. So again, Evolve Through Experience. Catch y'all on the next episode.